video on something called a tomato dip sandwich. Well, I've never had one, but I was curious about them. So what they basically are is a fried tomato sandwich, um, and then you dip the bread in the either kind of cooking the juices that come out of the tomato or the a little bit of dripping. So it's like a cheap sandwich. So if you couldn't afford a like a bacon sandwich, you'd have a tomato dip sandwich, and the dip was you dipping the bread into the tomato kind of cooking juices. So I presumed it was made with tin tomatoes or tomatoes that were kind of chopped up when you have from a sandwich shop, or when you have like a full English breakfast and you have some cooked tomatoes. So the tomatoes are cooked, reduced down a little bit, and then you have them with a breakfast. So a little bit, I don't know what a little bit like, but anyway. So I was kind of it's been in the back of my mind for years and years and years and years and years, and I just kind of thought it would be interesting to have a go. And I've got some bread rolls. So what I've done with the bread rolls is I have slightly fried them in a little bit of lard to get a little bit crispy and a little bit of extra flavour. So you get that umami flavour from the. Ideally, it wants to be something like bacon grease or the grease that comes out of sausages. Ideally, you want that, so you kind of get that meaty umami kind of flavour. So you get the flavours of the bacon and of the sausage without actually putting those things in, type of thing. So I'm just using a bit of lard that I made, so it's got a lot of flavour into it. And then I didn't really want to use tin tomatoes, because that's just a bit of a. It's never going to be. It's just going to be too sloppy to have in a sandwich. I suppose it's fine if if you're on a kind of like budget, that's kind of quite fine. But I just kind of thought what we'll do is we'll use these beef tomatoes, and we'll just push out I pushed out the seeds and the excess liquid, because we don't want too much of that in the liquid. So some salt and some pepper, and we're frying in lard as well. So I thought what I'd do is I'd do them as round this for one sandwich, and then I've got another tomato and these trimmings, and what we'll do is we'll chop those up, and we'll see if we can do the kind of same but more like a chopped up version, but not cook them too much. So I still want the flavour of the fresh tomato, and I don't want to cook it down to a pulp. That's what I'm kind of saying. I want it to stay kind of quite whole. So and a bit of caramelisation. So it's starting to colour, which is kind of what I wanted. So tomatoes with salt, so a little bit more salt, and that's caramelisation of the sugars in the tomato. So we're going to get a little bit of colour. Now, if I wanted to be fancy, I'd use some of my sourdough, but I'm running out of sourdough. I've got some in the freezer, but I'm running out, and it's going to take me a couple of days to get another batch through of sourdough. And I also need to faff with another recipe with sourdough, which I've been doing quite a lot of recently. So I don't want to have to. I didn't want to have to use the sourdough, but I think we might do. If these are a success, when I've got some sourdough, we'll have a go with doing the same, but with a sourdough instead of like a cheap sandwich tea cake, bread roll, bat, barn, whatever you want to kind of call them. I'm not really bothered, but as long as it comes with chips in it, it's a good thing. But they're not going to have chips in it. There's just this argument in the UK about what to call one of these: cobs, barns, bread cakes, tea cakes, rolls, all different kinds of things. And that's why I don't think people will ever be able to get on, because they can't even agree to call something as simple as a bread roll that you put chips in to make a cheap butty, or which way you should make your cup of tea. If you should put your milk in first, and if you should put any sugar in. So if we can't agree about those things, we can't really agree about anything. I did think about grilling. Well, it's not a grill. I did think about putting these underneath the grill and cooking them that way, but I wasn't just 100% sure about that. I think it's easier to cook things in a pan And also if we'd cooked the bacon in the pan, that would have been even nicer because we would have got all the things in as well. And I kind of think it probably would be nice to have this in as part of a bacon sandwich, you know. So maybe we might do that. No, we won't, because it's just a tomato dip sandwich. But the dip comes from the dipping. So what you would do is you would fry these tomatoes off, and then you would dip the bread in that bit of cooking fat and juice that's around there. So I still want a bit of a bite. Now it's soft around the outside, but it's still hard in the centre, which I'm not that bothered about. I quite want that. I don't want the sandwich to fall to bits. I don't want the tomato to fall to bits in the sandwich. So that's kind of wanting to come off there. So we pretty much know that they're just about done. So while we're here, this tomato top's not particularly very good. So let's just get rid of that bit, and let's get rid of that bit, and then that. This tomatoes will be ready now. And then that. So just a rough chop up of the tomatoes. So they're not going to fall out too much. And let's just whip the top off that. And we'll use that top. Right, so I reckon those are ready. So that in, which is the bottom. That's the bottom. Let's be generous. Those bits in there, and then let's get these tomatoes in here. And then what we can do this for a sandwich. Yeah, we can look for a sandwich. Let me save any more of that. We don't like waste. We can get a bit more tomato. So I'll need to put a little bit more fat in there. And then a bit more salt. And then a bit more pepper. Run out of pepper, as always. Where is it? Here. So, I was kind of thinking we could throw some onion in there as well, but we could also throw some bacon in there. It starts getting a bit OTT, but if we use things as a base, then we can always add more. But normally think about bacon, lettuce and BLT sandwich, bacon, lettuce, tomato, normally comes with raw tomato rather than cooked. I think cooked might be quite nice. So, a bit more pepper. So essentially it's going to be a fried tomato sandwich. So let's pop that. So it'd be nicer if those were hot, but not to worry. We're only faffing around. So we'll see which is better to do. Tomatoes are going to taste nice, like fried tomatoes with a bit of lard and some salt and pepper are going to be delicious, aren't they? But as you can see, that liquid that we pulled out of the tomatoes would just make that all just too wet and sloppy, and I don't want it wet and sloppy. So these can cook quicker. I could really just take a picture. I'll have to pause and I'll have to take a picture. Just make that look a little bit more presentable. See if there's more of the tomato hanging out the side of the sandwich. See, they're softening. That didn't take long at all, did it? So those tomatoes on there are like that one. I think that bit of bacon would be lovely on that, wouldn't it? Maybe some onions. Kind of all tossed together. So those in there like that. That one there like that. That one there like that. And then take a picture. Right, let's cut into them and have a look. So it'll be juicy enough that we don't need to put any kind of condiment on it. We won't need any mayonnaise or anything like that. So there we go. So it started to soak into the bread, which is kind of what we want. And then how does that one look? Chuck those bits back in. That one looks slightly better. That one looks slightly better. Also cut into it without dropping bits on the floor, which I've just done. Be careful not to stand in it. So that's alright, isn't it? So get those bits up off the floor before standing them. Make a mess, well, more of a mess than usual. And then how do these taste? Do you know, that's lovely. That's really nice with that. I think that's really good. That's so simple and that's so good. So yeah, that'd be even nicer. So if we think about, if we were to use sourdough, it would actually be, and you're basically making a bruschetta, aren't you? Where you toasted bread is topped with other things. So essentially we're doing that, but we're putting a lid on it and making a sandwich. That's really nice, is that? What's the other one like? So something so simple. That's really good, is that? That's delicious. So we've got the, it's delicious because the tomatoes are nice and big and juicy. So we've got the acidity from those. And then we've got, it's important that we use the fat that we use as well. So can use olive oil or like a vegetable oil, something like that. But we've got a meatiness if we use something like lard or a chicken fat. We've got the meatiness of that already, so we've got another depth of kind of flavour. So, and then the salt and the pepper, and we've to improve the flavour, and then we've fried the bread as well. So the bread's kind of got a bit of a caramelised, bit of a crunch to it. That's really good. I think that's going to be even nicer with sourdough. So when I've got some sourdough, we'll do the same again. But I think that's going to be absolutely delicious. And I don't know why there aren't more places that don't do tomato dip sandwiches. So let's have a go with these tomato dip sandwiches, but we'll do it with sourdough. So I've made some sourdough today, so we've got some sourdough. So what I've done is I've just smeared some of the lard on one side of the bread, not both sides, and then fried it in the back in this pan here. So like this, and then we'll turn over, and as you can see, it's just going to get a little bit crispy and a little bit fried on the inside. I'm going to have that on the inside of the sandwich. I'm not going to have it on the outside because I think if you're doing grilled cheese sandwiches, you end up with just like grease all over your hands. So that's not what I wanted. So that can go down, and then this cooker's not lighting. Oh, there we go. So then we want. So I've sliced the tomato and I've just pushed out the majority of the seeds, and then we've got more of this lard here, and this is what we're going to fry these tomatoes in, and we'll do it with tomato slices, and then we'll do it with tomato chunks as well. So we'll put the sandwich both ways again. So this will be a posher, better version of the sandwich. It's probably a little bit too much lard. How are those bits of bread? They are fine. We can turn that off. Oh no, we can keep that on because we'll do the other two bits of bread as well. That's probably too much lard. That's probably too much lard. Watch that drip. So move that around. Turn that down a bit, and then tomatoes in. And because we've got rid of those seeds, it's going to be a little less slippery. Now, some salt will help bring out the liquid. So we just season, and then we'll get that nice caramelisation on the tomato. Now, I did notice when I was eating my tomato, that bit there was a little bit tough. So I was happy, I was fine with that. That didn't bother me whatsoever. However, you might just want to think about that if you're ever going to do this yourself. So Those other ones can go in the back over there, and then fuck it around. So we're going to use that up, and use that up. So the video will be a little bit longer than it needs to be, but we are doing things at the right time. So actually, I've got more tomatoes. So we'll do it both ways. So I use the beefsteak tomatoes, but I also bought another tomato as well, so we can show what I would do if I didn't buy beefsteak tomatoes and I was just doing chopped up tomatoes into the sandwich. And squish those out of there. Get that out of there. So what I would do with any other type of tomato is I would quarter it. I'd whip out that little bit of stalk because that's a bit tough, and flip these over before we burn. That's what we wanted. And that nice caramelisation. Better. Back. Okay, so a bit more salt on this side. And pepper, because tomatoes like salt and pepper. And then I would get that, and then I would just push that bit of seed out of there like that, because we don't want that wet. And do the same on that one. I'll use that tomato water for something else. I'm not going to waste it. I don't think I'll waste anything. And then that. Look that one a little bit, that can go in there. Turn that down a bit. So the back's fine. We'll use that because we've got it. Yeah, it's just a little bit too tough in the centre there, so I'm not going to use that bit. It'll be fine if you're cooking it down for a longer time, but this is quite a quick thing. Like that. Not bothered about that bit of skin. Enough tomato-ish. Don't have too much and too little. That bit. So, how are these looking? Ah, perfect. Even better. So we've lost all that fat. Right, so let's just make this sandwich and take a picture. No, I've got no space. I've got no space. So, we only need 2. We might put 3 in. What's more than that? That was there, and that. There. A bit more fat. Made a bit of a mess of the pan, but can't be helped. Don't want that. That. Right, so those will cook quite quickly. Salt. Not too much salt this time because we'll have the residual of the salt in the pan. So I'll turn that up a little bit. And that back on there. And then so I put the fried sides on the inside, and then you haven't got the crispy on the outside and making a mess of your fingers. So I need to take a picture. So those tomatoes have just softened enough that we can put them onto the first bit of bread and just squish them in a little bit, which will kind of represent the, oh, I forgot the word, which will be kind of like the dipped part of it. So the juices from the tomatoes will be soaked up by the bread. So we'll squish them a little bit, and then we'll put the top on and squish again. Then we'll get that squishy, and all the juices dripping into the bread. Let's put that in anyway. I was going to think it was going to be a bit too much, but it's all right if it squirts out of the sides. So they look delicious. Taste delicious. Oh. And then squish, and then cut it in half. And it's splattered everywhere, but not to worry. And then onto the plate. And then we'll take a picture, and then we'll give a taste. Right, so let's have a taste. We'll have to do it quick because I'm running out of space on my phone. So. That's delicious. That's delicious. Of course the sourdough makes it better. But anyway, if you grow tomatoes and make your own bread, that's going to be a delicious cheap lunch. Still nice anyway. A huge success that one, because that's delicious. If someone ever said I wanted to cook me a fried tomato sandwich, that's exactly how I'd want it.